I'm imagining a shift in local culture, an approach to growing food that will better suit who we are and where we are. I'll talk about the unique qualities of the Los Angeles area. I'll describe some of the obstacles to that shift and some aspects of gardening that need our attention. And I'll ask lots of my own questions, things I wonder about the shift and the future. The points I want to make mostly are not new ideas, but ways of thinking that often get lost when curious gardeners try to digest the huge body of information about food growing and get drawn in by the garden supply industry. I like the title of the book by Amy Trubeck, The Taste of Place. Terroir is the only word I know that expresses this important concept of the taste of place. But I don't really care for it too much. It's hard to say, and it has a snobbery element associated with it, mostly because of expensive wines. Here's UNESCO's definition of terroir. A terroir is a geographical limited area where a human community generates and accumulates along its history a set of cultural, distinctive features, knowledges, and practices based on a system of interactions between biophysical and human factors. The terroirs are living and innovating spaces that cannot be reduced only to tradition. Terroirs are not static. They are breathing, growing, ever-changing. So what is our terroir? In our place, who are we? Los Angeles is not a stable community with a stable agricultural history. We are an ever-changing multicultural city. We have people that move in and out quickly and households that change location a lot. Our gardens and our foods are ethnic, trendy, cross-cultural, and delicious. We are the land of the Korean burrito. And what kind of place is LA? It's a Mediterranean climate. And a Mediterranean climate is a place with hot, dry summers and cool, wet winters. Or, as some people say, the places where olives grow. We have different local growing zones that are affected by marine influence, altitude, wind exposure, and average temperatures. Our skyline is more horizontal and less vertical than other large cities, which means we have more yards. We suffer from drought and have an uncertain climate future. Our area has unique growing conditions. We have a 12-month food garden. For this reason, a lot of information in books and magazines about garden don't apply to us. It doesn't apply to us. Here is an historical postcard of a farm on Elysian Park Drive. And I wish I had the year for you, but I couldn't find it. As recently as 1950, Los Angeles was the #1 agricultural county in the United States. In the 19th century, we were the wine-producing capital of the nation. The seal of Los Angeles contains oranges, olives, and grapes. But in addition to this, we have grown historically avocados, several kinds of nuts, persimmons, pomegranates, figs, and a huge range of other citrus. Those of us who rent or buy homes in the city often find at least one of these varieties in our yards. Today, if you go to a locally owned nursery in an ethnic neighborhood, you will find many new plants that are thriving in our area. Asian guavas, Indian and Asian citrus, and herbs like epazote, curry leaf, hoja santa, and many new kinds of vegetables, eggplants and chilies from all over the world. These are not the elitist, yuppie vegetables that I've heard them called, but simply produce from another time or place that we can grow here. Here's my friend Rishi Kumar of the Growing Home in Diamond Bar with his cherimoya harvest. I like his little perception trick there. Both chefs and gardeners get fascinated with exotics. I once went to the annual convention of the California Rare Fruit Growers, swearing that I didn't have any room for any more trees in my yard, and I came home with 35 exotic fruit trees. I've planted so many exotic fruit trees over the years, but very few of them are still alive. Finger limes and habaneros are already trendy, but who will be the first hip chef to popularize sudachi, papalokelite, or carambola? And more important to me is which one of those things will thrive here and become a taste of our place. And of course, the future will look different too. As the climate and water supply continue to change, what will be the taste of our place? Shouldn't we be searching for and developing the tastiest and most drought-tolerant fruits and vegetables for the LA area? I don't think anybody's going to do this for us. I really don't. How can we share the successful garden discoveries from all our city's cultures? What if devoted gardeners like me started breeding vegetables for our dry climate, developing our own heirlooms to pass on and be improved on by future generations? Have you ever had a volunteer tomato that springs up somewhere and thrives and produces with very little help? Well, I want to take that tomato and cross it back with my favorite tomato, which is the Cherokee Purple, and work towards a vigorous and tasty plant that can put up with some abuse. Tomato expert Craig LaHoulier of North Carolina is part of a group of volunteers in North America, Australia, and New Zealand who are working to create delicious container tomatoes, tomatoes that thrive in pots, by crossing flavorful heritage tomatoes with sturdy container varieties. What if we had a tomato seed called LA Balcony? We can also draw out special characteristics in varieties that already thrive here. For example, my neighbor Christina Wenger has developed a new variety of tomatillo with a wonderful dark color and an excellent flavor. I've been growing food for 35 years, and I've seen gardening and my many other interests rise and fall in popularity several times. These fads keep coming back, all except for macrame. Oh, you didn't get it. There it is. I love that picture. Kitchen gardening is in right now, and I hope it stays in. But being a fad has its drawbacks. Any good idea can be turned into a fad or a commercial product, and often we see its meaning and quality diluted. The late great Italian cook and author Marcella Hazan commented, "I wish I had never said the words balsamic vinegar." Peter Hatch, head gardener at Monticello for 30 years, who was responsible for recreating Thomas Jefferson's fruit and vegetable gardens, told me that he absolutely refuses to use the word heirloom. Here are some words which used to have vitality, but their overuse has drained them of meaning, and they no longer indicate quality. Something similar has happened with some garden products. A good example is bagged compost and soil, where the sheer quantity needed for all this gardening enthusiasm has caused some suppliers to look to the wrong places for the bulk they need, like municipal sludge. For example, a few years ago, I lost all my summer garden seedlings, about 300 of them, to a bag of bad potting soil. And here's another example. America's Heritage Poultry Organization will tell you heritage chicken breeds are losing vigor and some of the characteristics that made them beloved in the first place. I am concerned about our seed stock for the same reason. Saving varietal vegetable seeds is tricky. There are many good reasons to save seed and some great books on the subject, but we must be well educated about seed saving techniques and find and support suppliers that have integrity. I prefer to leave it to the professionals. Researching and sharing information about garden resources will help us protect our future. Okay, now back to terroir. Here is my favorite description of terroir by a 19th century French geographer named Vidal de la Blache. He says it's the rapport between the soil and the people. We've got the people part. Now we need to work on the soil part, our most valuable resource, number one on any serious gardener's list. I like to call myself a dirt farmer because dirt is what I cultivate the most. In my last house, after 15 years of nurturing the soil, I had dirt that I could shove my hand into with no resistance, full of the white strands of mycelium, and a garden that attracted scores of beneficial insects, butterflies, and birds, reducing the population of pests and diseases. More than anything else, this soil was the reason for the fantastic quantity and quality of food that I grew there. The granite soil in my new yard at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains is full of nutrients which will remain unavailable to my plants if the soil is not healthy. I need to bring it to life so that it's full of organisms that have the power to deliver nutrients to plants, to protect them from disease, and to store water. Nothing in the garden is more important than that. My new garden needs tons of mulch. My own compost, wood chips from the tree trimmer, horse manure, leaves, pine needles, grass, clippings when I can get them, newspaper, and cardboard. I practice chop and drop, which means when I trim or remove a plant, I often cut it up and let it fall to the ground. I learned how to do my own garden irrigation systems long ago to save money, and now I fill all my waterline trenches with branches and logs that break down in the soil over time and help with water retention. These types of mulches are all free. Why are we throwing away anything from our gardens? Landscape architect Owen Dell says, there is no away. In a dry climate, and ours is getting ever drier, the healthiest food garden is not going to look like a photo from Architectural Digest. It is beautiful, but not necessarily neat and tidy. Raised beds are what many people want. They look neat, and while there are good reasons to use them, like handicap access and properties that have ground soil laced with heavy metals, many of my friends are not happy to hear me say that raised beds do not support healthy soil and water conservation in a dry climate. What if the value of your property was based in part on the health of your soil? What if healthy food-producing trees raised the price? What if escrow required a soil test? If these things were true, then real estate photos would be very different. Instead of lawn and blow-dried earth, we would see soil rich with mulch. Instead of cubed shrubbery, we would see drought-tolerant plants that attract beneficial insects. And instead of plants chosen for just how they look, we might see lovely ground covers that also enrich the soil and retain moisture. Here is a photo of a recent family breakfast. By family, I refer to a group of wonderful like-minded friends along the base of the San Gabriel Mountains. One has a small home goat dairy. One produces eggs and meat birds, and the rest are fruit and vegetable growers. I don't need to have goats or raise the same meat birds as my friends, but I do need to have things I can offer them in exchange. This photo shows Emily's avocados, Christian's eggs, Gloria's greens, Rose's persimmons, and my oranges. And recently I started making my own sriracha hot sauce. This results in some of the most satisfying meals ever. Okay, these are the things I imagine for our future. For more people to grow food and form exchange groups with their friends and neighbors. To have an avenue of communication between kitchen gardeners in all the many cultures of our city. That we start hunting for, recording, and creating varieties that will see us into the future into our dry future and inspire our chefs. And most of all, that our soil would become the valuable and well-tended primary resource that it should be. I'm a professional musician. I was blessed that music came to me easily, but the real reason I became a musician is the tremendous satisfaction I get from being in a group of people who are putting their energy simultaneously towards the same goal, the zone, the flow. Two of the greatest highlights of my career were not moments of public recognition or collaborations with famous people. The first was a performance of Bach's B minor Mass for a large audience of choral directors. They knew the piece, they had sung it, and most of them had conducted it. The energy coming from the audience was so palpable that the zone extended into the whole theater. The second was a performance of Britain's War Requiem on the 50th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, performed by German, Japanese, and American choirs and attended by World War II vets. It was one of the most moving days in my life. These moments were full of attentiveness and caring. And when I bring those to the land, I get the same kind of satisfaction, the same kind of energy exchange from my relationship with my garden. All right, I want to close with a final note from Wendell Berry on attending to place. The question that must be addressed, therefore, is not how to care for the planet, but how to care for each of the planet's millions of human and natural neighborhoods, each of its millions of small pieces and parcels of land, each one of which is in some precious way different from all the others. Our understandable wish to preserve the planet must somehow be reduced to the scale of our own competence, that is, to the wish to preserve all of its humble households and neighborhoods. Thank you.